Well, hey, I'm Sarah Harper, and I'm sitting down with Tanner Iglio, and we're going to talk a little bit about one of the songs on Always Sing, our PCC original album. And today, I want to talk to you about Breaking Ground. One of my favorites. One of my favorites. What was going on in your life when you started writing this song?
So when I started writing this song, it's no secret, by the way, to me at least. I'm sure other people would be nice about it. It's no secret to me that I am probably the least polished musician and one of the least knowledgeable musicians who wrote on the album. And this was particularly true when I was writing this song. So I literally, I was going through this time in my life where I was really having an identity crisis in the best kind of way, where I had been for a while, probably like 5 or 6 years, coming out of high school into college. I had really built my identity on what I thought God was doing in me, but it really was all about me, and I didn't realize that until I came to this point in my life. And so right around 2014, 2015ish, I had this just impact where God hit me deep. Like, this is where you're missing the mark, and it really opened my eyes. And so I wrote this song a couple years later out of that story. And the reason it's called Breaking Ground is because I saw this spot where, the lyric, we're longing for a new path without our past to hold us down. It's because there were a lot of good things that were a part of my life and that I was able to do based on the calling God had given me there. But I didn't think any of that mattered anymore because I finally got it. Like, that, it didn't have anything to do with me. It was about where God was pushing me, where God was moving me, and ultimately it would be all for His glory. And so at that moment in my life, that marked the spot where I was going to break ground on something completely new on the foundation of what my life would look like. So out of that identity crisis and reshaping of who God had called me to be came the feeling of this song.
Like a new chapter.
Yes, absolutely.
Love it. So this song started with just you and a piano.
Yes.
And it's gone through quite an evolution. So talk to me about the process of Breaking Ground becoming the song that we know now.
Well, as I mentioned about the whole musician thing, when I sat down at the piano, I was like, what are some songs I really like? And what's the mood I'm going for here and all this kind of thing? And so I looked up a couple songs, just look up chord charts, ultimateguitar.com, shout out. Looked up some chord charts, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But these chords, I know I like them in the song. And then so I literally just sat down at the piano and I would hit a chord and be like, I don't know how that sounds. And I would play a different chord. And I just started writing to it and singing a melody to it. And I actually wrote a verse. I wrote the first verse, and then I wrote a chorus, which was actually quite a bit different than what the chorus ended up becoming. So I wrote the verse, the chorus, and then I wrote the bridge. And those are the only things I had. And then when I brought them to the table in all of our songwriting workshops and all that, there were a couple people who had a hand in shaping, specifically Lindsay Harris had a lot of shaping the lyrics of what the song became. And, the feel of the song is something that we can talk about as we go, and I'm sure we will. But, yeah, so the song started with me essentially, for lack of a better term, just hitting every key I could and being like, this sounds good here, this sounds good here. And knowing that if I can just get the simplest part of it down, like where I'm trying to go with, I can turn it over to somebody else who actually knows what they're doing on the keyboard, and it can turn into something melodic. So that was my goal, was to get the meaning across, and I would worry about the music part later, I guess is the best way I can describe the strategy.
Did you have any idea that it was going to become this big rock song on our album?
So what's funny about that is people always ask me, they're like, what kind of music do you listen to? I've been a worship coordinator, I'm a pastor. People are like, what kind of music do you listen to outside of church? And I listen to straight metal, like metal, post-hardcore, like screaming, some clean vocals, heavy drums, heavy guitar. And I feel like that, and it's for a reason, but I feel like that genre, at least that sound, is criminally underrepresented in the Christian music scene. And the people who do perform that kind of music are, they're relegated to like a niche slot.
Right.
So when I wrote the song, I really wrote it thinking it would never see the light of day, I guess. I was like, I'm going to write this just thinking, I'm going to write this in a way of a song that I would want to hear as someone, because I know there's more people like me. So like in the bridge of the song, there's a part where the melody goes pretty high. Mm-hmm. Originally, I wrote that part as a scream. Like when I wrote the album, that was just going to be like a straight, hardcore vocal scream, which made it quite fun when I was like, well, I'm not going to do that for this worship album because I'm also realistic as much as I love metal music of what people want to hear.
They might not have been ready for that.
Well, exactly. And I also, it's not like I'm talented enough to do a good scream like that. But so then when we got in the studio, I was like, okay, I have to sing this. This is really high. Let me see what I can do about it. I had some hand, obviously, in how the song ended up coming out. But again, turning it over to people who recognized the vision I was going for. And Elijah Shirelli, one of the major contributors to the album and its design and the sound. Him and I have been friends for a very long time. And I essentially was like, I need you to make this what it is. I was like, this is what I'm going for. This is the feel I want. What can you do about it? And he wrote these guitar parts, and there were specific times where when we were going in the studio, I got the pleasure and the gift of getting to sing and drum it. And so the drums really shaped what it became, because I sat down, particularly at the bridge part, and Elijah, when we recorded the drums for the workshop, he wrote the drums, and he brought so much to it that I had never thought about. And so I was like, how can I take what Elijah brought to the drums? And I literally told him, I was like, I think I'd rather you drum this than me, because you're doing it better than I ever could. And he was like, no, you need to do this. So I went home and I was working on what ended up being the breakdown. I showed up to the studio, Thomas was there too, and another one of the writers on the album, and I was like, look, guys, I'm willing to do this, whatever you guys think is best. But I wrote this metal breakdown, and I want to try it and see what we can do. And Elijah was like, we can try it, man. I don't know. Like, it didn't seem like it was going to be great, the hopes of it happening. But I just recorded it a couple times. And by the time it was over, Elijah and Thomas were like, we're just going for it. So don't even worry about recording the other part. They were like, we're just going to go for it. And then after that, Elijah sent me this voice recording. He was like, dude, you got to listen to this guitar part I just came up with. And he sent it to me, and I was listening to it. It's on my phone speakers. It's like, like crackly. And I was like, like, yes, like this is everything that I wanted it to be. So, yeah.
That's great. I love that you and Elijah have that type of relationship where you have the trust to, go to him for ideas for your music and make them better, and that he empowered you to do it yourself.
Yeah.
So I got the chance to witness you recording the lead vocal for this song, which is obviously very challenging. Not a scream, but still very challenging. And you did such a great job with it. Do you have a favorite memory from recording this song in the studio?
So when I originally wrote the song, I was so frustrated because when I'm recording it, or like practicing singing it in my shower or whatever, like when conditions are great, I'm at home by myself or in the car, I'm like, I was able to like do it exactly how I wanted. And when we got to the studio, by the time we get to the bridge, I've already been singing for a while.
Yeah.
My throat, and I'm not technically the best. So my style when I drum, when I sing, is always every second, give it everything I got. So like when I'm drumming, I'm like sweating, I'm exhausted, but I'm like in it, passion, power, zero technique. So like by the time I got to the bridge, my throat is already like completely sapped. But anyway, we got there. And so we tried a couple takes, and Dan, who was doing the producing of the album and all those things, he was like, all right, we can do this a couple different ways. You can try and sing the whole thing, or we can try and piece it together. And I was like, I want to try to do the whole thing. And so I tried a couple times, and funny enough, the very first time, I'm sure we all laughed about this, we get to that part, and I go to hit the note, and I'm like, righteousness making us, and nothing comes out. Like, nothing came out. I just, like I was going through puberty all over again. And so, with that, I was like, okay, and I started to kind of lose some confidence. And so we tried a couple different recordings, and Dan finally, by the time, we'd done it like 5 or 6 times, Dan was like, all right, he was like, do you want to try again, or I think we can work with what we have? And I was like, I just want to try again. And so the memory of that comes from, I just like took this giant breath, and I was like, I'm just going to give it everything I have. And so I just did, and it just went, and that's the take we end up using. And, I really enjoy that, because it feels like, it's like I want to bring integrity to this song, and not just because obviously we all want to do our best, but because of what I said earlier about this meaning so much to me, about what God has done in me and what it means for my life to reflect his glory to those around me. And like in this moment, like the lyric of your righteousness making us whole, to me, it's like, there's nothing I can do that puts the final pieces of this puzzle together. It's always going to be you, God. And so to be able to bring that passion to that moment authentically, now that I think back on it, it really means a lot to me.
That's awesome. So people at PCC know you for a lot of different roles that you've done. You know, you're assistant campus pastor, you've been a worship coordinator, you drum, you sing, you've rapped. Now, as a songwriter, being a part of this album, was this your first trip down songwriting lane?
Yes, it actually really was. Well, that's not true. Some clarification on that. So I did used to rap. I'll be honest with you guys. If you've been around PCC, you may recognize me from 2010 when I would be leading worship on the platform in a flat brim hat with a polo with a white tee under it and the sleeves sticking out of the polo.
Jesus still loves you.
Yeah, and basketball shorts down past my knees, and I was up there singing. And so I actually back then was writing some music with some friends of mine, but I don't even know where those recordings exist. God probably smudged them from the history books for the sake of everyone involved and the entire world's history. So thank you, Jesus. But that was my first foray into music writing. But this song is really the first time that I actually wrote something that had any substance to it. And like I said, I never thought that it would actually be anything. But the fact that it became something, obviously I had something to do with it, but all the music on the album has so many different hands on it, and Breaking Ground is probably the best example of it. Like I said, I brought a verse, a chorus, and a bridge, and none of it sounds the same as when I brought it, which means people who are more capable than me made it what it is. And so to me, it even feels like I kind of like just brought a little something, and they built it, and then it's a gift to me to get to put like the extra garnish on top of like the genre and the extra feel to it. It's almost like a gift back to me from these people who I respect so deeply. So it's an honor that this is what that early songwriting has turned into.
Well, I think you've done a great job. I have so much respect for you as a vocalist, drummer, and songwriter, and I look forward to the songs that you're going to write. And obviously this song, Breaking Ground, comes from a place of obedience to what God has led you to do. So very proud of you for that.
Thank you.
That's Breaking Ground. Thank you for joining us.
The choice was clear, it was life or fear. I chose the chance, but in the darkest night, in a hopeless fight, still you are the same, holding on to me even when I flee. The truth is you can't help but see the best in me. God, we know you're here, let us hear your voice, 'cause we're done with fear, broken hearts rejoice, 'cause we're longing for a new path without our past to hold us down, and with the fire of redemption, today we're breaking ground. Now the choice is clear, life or fear, I choose your name. But in the darkest night, in a hopeless fight, still it's you I claim, holding on to me even when I'm weak. The truth is you gave everything to be my strength. God, we know you're here, let us hear your voice, 'cause we're done with fear, broken hearts rejoice, 'cause we're longing for a new path without our past to hold us down, and with the fire of redemption, today we're breaking ground. There's hope in the dark, a breath and a spark. The atmosphere ignites with His power and His light. There's hope in the dark, a breath and a spark. The atmosphere ignites with his power and his light. There's hope in the dark, a breath and a spark. The atmosphere ignites with his power and his light. Goodness can only be found in your way, and your truth, and you're saving our souls. 'Cause God, we were broken, but sin is defeated. Righteousness making us God, we know you're here. Let us hear your voice. 'Cause we're done with fear. Broken hearts rejoice.